Maverick PT, welcome back to Kinetic Linking Friday. Little episode 2 on the elf on the shelf that we're going to be kind of taking you through. So, in episode 1, we took a look at kind of highlight for you, we took a look at that subtalar joint. Big joint that's kind of down on the side there, on the side of the inside of the foot. That's formed by the talus on the calcaneus, so the heel and that little bone right underneath it. We talked about how when the foot first comes in contact with the ground while walking, squatting, lunging, our single leg reaches, our hopping progressions, lunges, etc. We talked biomechanically what happens. We talked about the calcaneus everting, so rotating down and in. We talked about it adducting and internally rotating in like that if this is the right calcaneus on the distal kind of aspect. We talked about it plantar flexing and tilting down, and the talus doing the same thing, but not as fast, giving us relative eversion and abduction. We talked about the mid-tarsal joint, the talonavicular joint, the calcaneocuboid joint, how we get good, solid relative inversion of that midfoot, which gives us relative inversion of that mid-tarsal joint as well, because it's distal in relation to proximal again. We have the, at that talo kind of navicular joint, we have the talus everting faster than what the navicular is, which gives us that relative eversion. We have relative abduction because we have the talus shooting to the inside, the distal aspect close to the toes internally. And we have, because that plantar flexion we get at the talus and of the calcaneus, we get relative dorsiflexion at that mid-tarsal joint as well today. So what I'm going to show you, a few things that I really like to do to kind of go after, kind of getting that elf on the shelf going, to talk to Santa, get the butt and the hips involved. Probably my favorite thing is a little retro style that my good pal and friend and mentor at the time, Jason Doubleday, back in Michigan at good old Grand Valley State University. One of the good staple exercises that we really got after and really found a ton of success with in restoring kind of mobility throughout the feet and the ankles, the hip, and a lot of good functional strength. So what I like to do initially, so for that elf on the shelf, I'll go, so I have 5 cones set on out. I have one forward, I have 2 on 45-degree angles to the right and the left, anterior medial, anterior lateral. If I'm on the left foot, we have a right medial. We have a medial on the right side, we have a lateral on the left side, so we have 5 cones, 5 dimensions. So what we'll take a look at to kind of get this elf on the shelf going first, let's go ahead and go with our reaches kind of forward. We'll go with 2 hands, and then we'll go with kind of a single arm as well. So the biomechanics that we had talked about previously, now with me going with an ipsilateral, little ipsilateral reach to 2 anterior medial, it's really getting that subtactum tali, that subtalar joint, really kind of cranking and really talking a lot of plantar flexion, a lot of adduction / internal rotation, and a lot of eversion from both of those, and a lot of good relative eversion. So a little wet, soggy kind of grass gives us some good kind of proprioceptive feedback. So the elf on the shelf now, when we come on out of that and transition to that left leg being the back-legged gait, we have an interesting phenomenon that occurs in that now we have more or less congruency rather at that mid-tarsal joint. So now I'm going to have this kind of shifting. So I have this calcaneus and talus that were internally rotated and adducted. They're now going to abduct. They're now going to abduct, and they're now going to start to dorsiflex, and they're going to invert because of that heel, because of that shelf, the elf sitting on the shelf. So the calcaneus is actually now going to invert, which is then going to throw the talus, that elf, back up and in. So the shelf is the protector of the elf. At that mid-tarsal joint now, we have down in the midfoot and the forefoot, we're going to have some good relative kind of eversion going on. Eversion, which is giving us relative eversion at that mid-tarsal joint. It's giving us adduction. So these guys are now coming together because the talus is thrown back up and in because the calcaneus is. And this is driven from butt and hip, foot and ankle, everything kind of collaborating together. We continue to have dorsiflexion at that mid-tarsal joint. At the subtalar joint, now we're going to have inversion of the calcaneus, which is going to give us good inversion of the of that subtalar joint. We're starting to kind of get a little more dorsiflexion going because now the calcaneus is coming up as well as the talus, and now we're starting to abduct and externally rotate those guys so that we can get external rotation of the tibia and of the fibula right there. So in the single leg anterior reaches with the upper extremity reach and driver, what I'll do now is with both hands or a single arm, I'll drive kind of that TZ2 position with my reach. 45 and then 90. I'll also love to go after using the single leg anterior reach lower extremity driver with an upper extremity driver. So now with my right foot as my base foot, I'm going anterior with it and a little anterior medial to really go after that TZ1 gate, and then medially. I'll also crank it up a little bit more posterior medially to get the talus, to get the calcaneus first, to be thrown internally and adduct. Same thing. And then we're going to go a little crossover, a little anterior lateral to go after TZ2. I like then doing these guys with squats. I like a good RXX stance. I like to rotate and reach kind of in sync, 45 to 90 and 120 degrees. I love a little frontal plane kind of driver and swing here to go after that left foot and ankle and TZ2 of gait. I also in this position, TZ1 with the right foot and ankle, all the good sequence in there that we just talked about. Biomechanically, kind of recreating that. I love the wedges. I love these little foam wedges. OPTP slant wedges. Get them on Amazon. 15 to 20 bucks. Free shipping. Get it. I love my single leg toe touchdowns. So this is the position, if you can see. Let me remove that cone so you can kind of glance. Take a little sneak peek. Don't worry, the elf on the shelf is not watching you with a sneak peek. So your foot is up. We can also invert this guy. Throw him in, palpate the navicular, that bone, not that medial malleoli, that ankle bone, but just a little bit forward. Just place it right there. So a little combination of these guys. I'll also use a little Kelton-born wedge to kind of get in there, to use a combo of these guys. So my single leg toe touchdown, right foot on up, just a little bit of weight on that left foot, and we're going to go with the reaches. We're going to drive in sync 45 and 90, my reach, and then we can also drive out of sync to go after TZ2. And I love to, let me show you what that looks like, inverted. We've already gone through in previous episodes kind of these guys, but I can add my little pick and my little press. 45 as well as 90 in sync to drive TZ1. And then TZ2, we'll go kind of foam wedge from just on the back side of the navicular tuberosity to kind of invert that heel. Invert so we can spin off that TZ2 kind of chain reaction. Those are good four or so with progressions of guys that I really love to drive and facilitate this elf on the shelf phenomenon. We do a lot of other things such as our single leg hopping. We'll get into in other future versions of Kinetic Linking Friday and just our experimental sessions, progressions pertaining to that. Take these exercises, play with it, enjoy your elf on the shelf. You have two of them. They're in both feet and ankles. They're called the sub-talar joint, people. Christmas. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Treat every day like Christmas, please. The elf on the shelf, as my son calls him in this little cartoon that we have on DVR. Chippy the elf. That's his name, Chippy. Chippy. So I always get a little grin on my face now when I'm playing around with all these things. The little rascal just really, really helps me be mindful of what's driving motion throughout the whole system. It's Chippy the elf. It's my subtalar joints. They love to be free. They love to move. They love to squeal. They love to grin. They love to cheer. They love to celebrate with their family and friends. The whole body. They love it when they're efficient and consistent. Play with these guys. Enjoy your day. Jam on. Love your elf on the shelf. Let him provide the feedback and the control that's necessary and that's needed. Share your secrets with him. He's going to replicate stuff back to Santa. Life is good. Have fun.